When Undertale was first announced on Kickstarter, it was advertised as a traditional role-playing game, where no one has to get hurt. From the very beginning, it strove to set itself apart from other games like it by simply stating that this is a game where you don't have to kill your enemies. You can, of course, but should you? At first glance, Undertale seems like any other top-down pixel-style game. You move from left to right, your enemy, the flower, is clearly labeled as the bad guy, and the simple style tricks you into thinking that the game might be just as simple. When I first sat down to play it, I certainly didn't expect to have all my preconceived notions about storytelling in games at the time completely destroyed in the best way possible. I didn't expect to actually have to backtrack through previously trodden land to get new dialogue to unlock the best ending, or that the characters in the game would be so self-aware that the main baddie, Flowey, actually shuts down the game in your first fight. I'll be so bold as to say that Undertale turned around everything we thought we knew about games at the time, because it plays with our expectations about how a game should be, mostly by having the characters in the game be aware that they're in a game. The core element of Undertale that sets it apart from other games is its story and how heavily it relies on it. The visuals are, at times, not exactly spectacular, but they don't need to be. Frankly, had the game looked any different, it would have been distracting. One thing that has to be said though, you know a game knows what it wants when it dares to leave a part of its story in the music. As Eva and I have been replaying Undertale on the channel, I remembered a very specific piece of music from the game that turned out to be a lot more creepy than first thought. I'll get back to that in just a moment, but for now it should be mentioned that this video will contain a lot of spoilers, so please go treat yourself and play Undertale before watching this. The musical piece is one that plays only if you do the terrifyingly named genocide run, meaning you have to kill everything on your path. The first time you hear this disturbing tune is when you clear the ruins of all monsters and the "but nobody came" sign pops up. What many in the fandom discovered is that if you play this tune about 1200 times faster, it's actually Flowey's theme. Flowey, the main villain, signifying that you have become just as bad as him, if not worse. After rediscovering this musical piece and how it's linked to one of the characters, it got me thinking, wait, just how many of the songs in Undertale are actually linked together? And how? There are the obvious ones, such as how Bluegay's theme is the milder version of the Mad Dummies theme. And how Papyrus's usual theme leads into Bone Trussle during his boss fight. Which, by the way, happened to be the moment when I knew that the music in this game was out of this world. One of the first things I discovered while tinkering with the music to find the many connections is that the characters that represent a certain area, such as how Undyne represents Waterfall and Mettaton represents Hotlands, their themes are usually linked together with that area in one way or another. Take Undyne as an example. Undyne being the leader of the Royal Guard, the true protector of the underground, she is dead set on seeing King Asgar's vision come true, that being capturing 7 humans and taking their souls so King Asgar can break the barrier that keeps the monsters trapped in the underground. They already have 6, meaning you're the last one left, so when she eventually faces you, she has quite a punchy battle theme. Waterfall, on the other hand, has a slow, melodic tune that fits the rivers and caves you wander around in, filled with echo flowers that tell the story of 2 monsters that want to escape the underground. Undyne, being a monster inspired by fish and other sea creatures, naturally fits in this area, and so does her theme song more than you might think. If you speed up the song Waterfall, it sounds like this. Matching the last part of Undyne's battle theme. During your fight with Undyne, Papyrus, one of the first monsters you befriend, calls you and interrupts the battle to invite you to Undyne's house, unbeknownst to Undyne. If you choose to go there, before you enter her house, you can hear her playing the piano. The song she is playing is in fact the last part of another character's theme, Alphys. We haven't met Alphys yet, and here we have something that not only foreshadows her character, but also their connection together, just through music. Undyne and Alphys both have quite an obvious crush on each other, made even more obvious when you go for the full pacifist run and you get the honor of helping bring the two together. Besides the music telling a story, so does the sound design itself. It always puzzled me that when you die, the voice telling you to stay determined and keep playing the game is the same voice as the man you're supposed to fight to beat the game, Asgore, the king standing in the way of your freedom. That is, until I had a closer look at the song playing during the game over screen. The song is in fact a slowed down version of the last bit of King Asgore's very own theme. Seeing as King Asgore needs to kill you to take your soul to free the rest of the underground, it's no wonder that he would encourage you to keep fighting until you can face him. He could just go and seek you out himself, but as is established through his dialogue, he actually doesn't want to fight you. If anything, he's encouraging you to stay alive for your own sake and also to drag out time before you actually reach him. However, what your brief death and Asgore's sudden voice and theme song could also be is simply a flashback. Assuming you're playing a pacifist run, after defeating Flowey, you're asked by Flowey to go back to an old save file from before you meet King Asgore to get the true pacifist ending. Eventually, you end up in the laboratories underneath Alphys' lab, and here you can find a bunch of old tape from King Asgore's family. They are recordings from when the first human fell into the underground, joined his family, and eventually died from an illness. As the human is lying on their deathbed, King Asgore speaks the words, "You have to stay determined, you can't give up. You are the future of humans and monsters." The exact words you hear when you get killed in the game. This sort of flashback also happens earlier in the game, when Undyne sends you falling to your doom and you hear Flowey's original self, Asriel, calling for you. The connections between the songs is by far best shown through Flowey, or rather Asriel, and all the songs connected to him. You face off Flowey 2 times during the pacifist run, and each fight has its own theme song. The first fight starts after you meet Asgore. Flowey steps in and finishes him off before you can, and steals the 6 human souls for himself to turn into a horrifying plant monster. The hair-raising, disjointed music that plays as you fight him gradually changes from plain horror to a heroic battle tune. As the souls Flowey has forcefully taken over start to fight back and help you out one by one, the tune slowly changes to the clearest and most hopeful state. You're using Flowey's power against him, and so it would make sense that even his own theme song has turned against him and momentarily become your theme instead. However, it's not the first fight against Flowey that is the most interesting one. Rather, it's the final fight before the game ends. Throughout the game, there is not a single melody that is as comforting as the one that plays in Toriel and Asgore's homes. Both melodies are variations of the main theme, one plays just at the beginning of the game, preparing you for your journey ahead, and the other plays at the very end of the game, preparing you for the final battle. I won't lie, I genuinely cried when I looked myself in the mirror in Asgore's home and the message, "Despite everything, it's still you," popped up while this song was playing. When you then face Flowey for the second time around, the music and Flowey himself have both changed completely. He's no longer trapped inside the flower, but has instead gained his body back to fight you as his true self, Asriel. And so the music represents this change as well. His actual theme song is a variation of the main theme. The main theme isn't just a song that represents you, the player, or the game. It's actually Asriel's theme. You've been playing through the final chapter of Asriel's story all along, discovering who he is, what has happened to him, and just how tragic his life actually is. If we go by the main theme being Asriel's theme, this also changes the meaning behind it every time it plays, such as in Toriel's or Asgore's home, the last two people with whom Asriel felt safe when he was a kid, being that they were his parents. It plays when you hear his voice for the first time after Undyne kicks you off the platform, it plays when you face Sans in the hallway before facing Asgore, and it plays as the final song before the game ends. Speaking of Sans, I think it's about time we talked about him. Both Sans and Papyrus are two of the few characters who don't have their songs linked to the area they live in. They don't match with the theme of Snowdin, and neither does their appearance. They are the only two skeleton-looking monsters in the entire underground, making them stand out quite a bit, especially Sans. Sans being one of the two characters who are aware of the player by constantly breaking the fourth wall by winking at the player when telling a joke, turning away from the player when saying something difficult, or even consciously changing the font used in his text box. His theme is probably the most laid-back one yet, with 3 variations to it. One that didn't even make the game, but can be found on the official soundtrack. His usual slow-paced theme turns into a sorrowful yet beautiful piano piece when he invites you out for dinner in Hotlands. It's here that we get a glimpse of the pain he's actually in, watching over you and making sure you don't misstep and suddenly turn bad. We also briefly get a sense of just how powerful he is, just in case you do mess up. The only reason he doesn't become a boss in the pacifist run is because he promised someone else not to kill you. However, if you do kill everyone else in the underground, there is no promise to keep. Sans is famously known as the hardest boss in the entire game. His theme song Megalovania was created way before the actual game was in the making, including 6 other songs such as Papyrus's theme, which might also explain why they don't match up with the town they live in. But Sans also has a second battle song, literally called Song That Might Play When You Fight Sans. Which is a sped-up version of his normal theme that never actually appears in the game. And on that note, that was 5 secrets hidden in the music of Undertale that blew our minds. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, why not check out some of the other videos we have on our channel? We do a fair bit of singing in them. So feel free to subscribe and hit the little bell icon to stay updated, but most importantly, have a lovely day.